disagree with you gently there.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, after that outbreak of mythomania, let's perhaps get down to some facts. So, Prime Minister, you know my job in Parliament is to do the maths. You have a pen there. Could you tell us what 148 plus 32 adds up to?
I'm going to leave that. I think what you're inviting me to do.
No, I'm asking you a simple question, Prime Minister.
Yeah,
right, okay. And earlier I asked you how many MPs you have. Perhaps someone's slipped you a note just to remind you how many Conservative MPs you have in Parliament.
I think, Meg,
do you know how many Conservative MPs you have in Parliament?
I think, Meg, this is a question designed to invite me to comment on
Prime Minister,
political events. When I've told
you don't want to
I've
answer it, let me answer it then. So you have 358 MPs. You did think it was 365. You have lost a few. As Mr Bryant has highlighted, you now have 32 ministers and PPSs who've resigned. It was 28 at the beginning of this meeting, and then an additional PPS who will resign tomorrow if you don't resign. So that makes it 182 if you include her. So half of 358, Prime Minister, just to make the maths simple for you, is 179. It's not looking very good, is it?
Well, Meg, you're wanting me to comment on
You've lost the confidence of more than half of your party, not including other members in this room who may not be in the 148. I've been generous and not double counted.
Well, sure. I'm here to talk about the government of the country, the policies.
Mr. Prime Minister, without the support of your party, you cannot govern this country responsibly or well. Whatever our political disagreements, I have respect for the office of Prime Minister, but I'm afraid I've completely lost respect for you and your capability to run this.
I think if you look at the actions that we're taking today, the bills that we're getting through, we are doing some fantastic things for the people of this country, and we'll continue to do them. And I appreciate they may not be supported by the Labour Party, Meg, but that's not my problem. That's your
problem. No, Prime Minister, about competence, not policy.
Darren Jones.
Prime Minister, it's being reported that there's a delegation of your cabinet colleagues waiting in Downing Street, including the Chief Whip, the Transport Secretary and your new Chancellor, waiting to tell you when you finish here today that it's time for you to go. How will you respond to that?
Darren, you're asking me to comment on...
This conversation will happen in a few minutes, Prime Minister.
So you say. But if you want to ask about what we're doing to help people with the cost of living, if you want to ask about what we're doing to build more clean, green energy supply, which this committee has taken an interest in...
That's going to be your answer to the Cabinet colleagues in Downing Street.
Then I'm very happy to talk to you about it. But I'm not going to give a running commentary on political events. We're going to get on with the government of the country.
Prime Minister, on the question of the Prime Minister's advisor on ministerial interests, you've had 2 resignations, not just one. Why did Sir Alex Allen resign?
Well, Sir Alex has I think, been pretty well documented, and I thank him too, was asked to investigate allegations of bullying against the Home Secretary. The team produced quite a long report, which was based on a lot of extensive work, mainly anonymised interviews, and I read it very thoroughly. And the trouble I found with it was that nothing that the Home Secretary had actually said seemed to me to breach the threshold necessary to trigger her resignation, although you might argue that she should have spoken in a different way from time to time. It didn't seem to me that the allegations wholly stacked up, and I thought that it didn't trigger a resignation. Sir Alex,
that wasn't the reason.
I'm coming to the reason.
The reason he resigned is because you wouldn't even accept his report.
Well, no. Well, let me say what happened. So Sir Alex took a view that it wasn't that. I read the report and I read the whole thing. He didn't actually write it, but he simply read it and drew some conclusions. I read all the interrogations that had taken place, and it didn't seem to me that, although she might have spoken differently from time to time, it didn't seem to me that she deserved to be fired on the basis of what I read. I read the whole thing. So I made this point. Now, the difficulty was that Sir Alex thought that the ministerial code had been breached, even if in a minor way, and that any breach of the ministerial code necessarily meant a resignation. That view has subsequently been modified by the Committee on Standards in Public Life, who have said that the ministerial that there can be gradations of sanctions for breaches of the ministerial code.
So what you should have done is accepted Sir Alex Allen's report. He would not have resigned.
Well,
it would still be in your gift not to demand the Home Secretary's resignation.
No, but it wasn't.
And the system would have been changed retrospectively as it has done. But you wouldn't even accept his report.
No, Savannah, as I remember, the problem was that in order to... I would have had to accept the Home Secretary's resignation. That was the problem. And that didn't seem to me, didn't seem to me to be a necessary outcome.
I mean, supposing you continue in office, what are the lessons you learn from the appointment of Chris Pincher?
I think the most important lesson is, first of all, don't be less optimistic about people's ability to learn and
perhaps take a bit more interest in it, because it's extraordinary how many things.
And then secondly, and
Prime Minister, perhaps you should just take a bit more interest.
Secondly, when something like this happens, make sure that we do a full timetable of exactly what happened and when it happened, so that when people go out to brief, they've got all the facts at their fingertips.
But it's not a comms failure, this, Prime Minister. It's a proprietary and ethics failure. Isn't the real lesson that if we promote people with the wrong behaviour and attitudes in this place, it will give permission for people to behave in that way, which is why we've got a culture problem in this place?
I think that you're onto. I think what you're saying is very important. I've given this a lot of thought, and I do think there is a problem with alcohol, and I've always resisted this conclusion in the past, but it sort of feels to me that some people simply can't take their drink, and we need to think about how we work that in Parliament. Now, this particular event took place in
didn't take place in Parliament.
But there is also an issue about standards of behaviour, so I additionally accept that I should have been more stringent in my approach, and as I've said earlier, I regret that.
But don't we also need to learn? I take it that Chris Pincher is a friend of yours, and that would be perfectly respectable, that we've let him down because we didn't give him the help he needed.
I think that's a very fair point.
What system is there in this place to support people in that position? What do you have in place as a leader of a political party to help people who have behavioural or drink problems?
Well, I think that we all have a duty as colleagues to look after each other and to try to help people, and that's actually one of the functions of the Whip's office.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Whips have other duties, and they rather conflict with their duty of care, and there needs to be something else to support people who need help, who don't feel that they're giving ammunition to the people who control their careers. So that doesn't work, does it? We've now got another Whip appointed to do the duty of care work. I mean, that's not going to work, is it? Bernard, what are you proposing? I'm not going to make policy on the hoof here, but what you've got in place as leader of your party is not working. Would you accept that?
No, I think there are issues about standards of behaviour, and I think I reluctantly come to the conclusion that there is an issue with alcohol.
Well, I mean, you're the last person in the room to accept that there's a problem. Why do you think integrity in public life has become such an issue under your premiership?
Well, I think actually the reality is that I think that people are very, very keen to try to get me off the subjects I want to talk about, and to try to focus on me.
So it's all about you.
No, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk. I've been trying very hard
throughout
this session to talk about the things that I care about.
Now, how much consideration are you giving to the prospect of your resignation?
I'm happy to tell you that I'm getting on with the job that I was elected to do, and that is what I'm going to do.
So all these problems are basically somebody else's fault?
No, I think that I think it was
so who is
one of these
responsible?
people who's left.
Who is responsible? Who should we hold accountable?
I am responsible, but I'm also responsible, Bernard, for delivering a huge manifesto commitments that we made in 2019, many of which are now coming through. Hugh asked about what are we doing to make sure that we're taxing electric vehicles properly. There is a colossal body of work that we're engaged on right now. We are uniting and levelling up across the country. We have the biggest programme of infrastructure investment that we've had for 100 years, and I'm going to get on with delivering on the programme that we set out and on the priorities of the people of this country. And I know that there will be plenty of people who, for whatever motive, want to try to throw me off course by turning it into a story about something entirely different. And I think that it would be a fine thing if we focused on the arguments between us that are about policy and about the agenda and what we actually love doing, which is working hard for our constituents and trying to make their lives better. You know, let's talk. I mean, we've had some interesting exchanges about how to control inflation or motor vehicles. Those are the things that people are interested in, and that's what I'm focused on.
Caroline Noakes.
Bullying and sexual harassment are about a culture of power. Have you just sat there and told us that alcohol is an excuse?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Is it throwing us off the story by trying to talk about alcohol instead of talking about the culture that has underpinned those behaviours?
Not at all. Not at all. I observe that some people seem to get very drunk, but that in no way minimises the underlying pattern of behaviour.
Well, that's what you've just done.
Exactly. I don't think.
Prime Minister,
I vehemently disagree with that.
I hope that you will reflect that in the end we're all dispensable.
Bernard, that is certainly true.
The programmes and the policies of your government and
all flesh is grass.
The welfare of the British people and the security of the nation are indispensable. And if you are becoming an obstruction to the achievement of those aims, I hope you will consider your position.
Of course I will. But I wanted you to know that my job is to get on and deliver on those aims, and that is what I was elected to do.
Will you resign if it is clear that you do not have the confidence of the majority of Conservative MPs?
You're asking me, I love this committee, but you're asking me again to offer commentary today on political events when I'm here to talk about
I wish you to
policy.
be clear about one thing, that if you have lost the confidence of your MPs, you will not seek a dissolution. You will stand aside and allow a leadership election to take place so the Prime Minister may send for an alternative leader. That's the proper procedure, isn't it?
What I'm going to do is get on with...
No, I need you to answer this question.
Where you're quite right, and where I passionately agree
I need you to answer this question, Prime Minister.
And with you, is that I see absolutely
no
need
Prime Minister, I'm going to ask you once more,
an election.
If you have lost the confidence of your MPs and you're required to step down as leader of the Conservative Party, you will not seek to dissolve Parliament.
Well, I think the last thing this country needs... But I'm not going to step down, and the last thing this country needs, frankly, is an election. On the contrary, I think the risk is that people continue to focus on this type of thing, and I think that is a mistake. What we need to do is get on with stable...
How would it help the crisis in Ukraine and the cost of living crisis if we were plunged into a general election that nobody wants?
But this is your fancy.
Well, then,
I think
then rule it out.
Of course I rule it out.
You've ruled it out.
The earliest date that I can see for a general election is 2 years from now, or 2024, I think is the most likely date for the next election. We have a huge amount to deliver. We're going to get on and do it.
And you'll resign if a vote of confidence in the Conservative Party
I think we're done.
is carried.
Look,
Otherwise, you're a danger.
You're asking me to comment on politics. I think it's important that we get on and deliver on our agenda, and that is what I was elected to do.
Well, I think it's the understanding of this committee you envisage a general election in 23 or 24, not before.
Well, you said 23.
And if you've lost the confidence of your own MPs and you cease to be leader of the Conservative Party, you will not plunge this country into an unwanted general election.
I've been very clear with you. I see
no
yes reason whatever for a general election now. On the contrary, what we need is stable government, loving each other as Conservatives, getting on with our priorities. That is what we need to do, Sir Bernard. Okay?
I love all my colleagues in the House of Commons.
Fantastic.
Order.
Thank you. Thank you.
Has ended.